I have 3 girls, ages 10, 8, and 5. They recently piled up cushions, pillows, and every squishmallow we own, which is an embarrassing number, at the foot of our stairs, and they would climb up a couple stairs and jump. Soon they became braver and would go a few steps higher. There were squeals of thrill and delight, along with conversation on strategy. It's jumping out, you see, not up. Each time they went up a step, my heart rate went up too. They got higher and higher until my oldest took a running leap from the top of the steps and launched herself into the pillow pit. It was terrifying. It was thrilling, all wrapped up together. This scenario has played itself out in our house in different forms throughout the years. There was a while where a ladder would get pulled out and placed in the middle of the living room. The girls would take turns climbing up as far as they felt comfortable and jumping off into a pit of something soft. It echoed a game that I used to play as a kid. We would diligently gather every soft item in the house and pile it in our living room. Then we would take turns as we blasted down the hallway as fast as we could and crashed into the homemade mountain. As a mom, I can appreciate my mom's willingness to go along with this, because while we were very diligent to check every nook and cranny for soft items, we were not as diligent when it came to leveling out the mountain and returning all of the soft items to their proper places. You could look at this experience and see the mess on the floor. You could look at this experience and think, I just folded those sleeping bags and they are so hard to fit in the closet. And those things are true and need to be considered. But sometimes we miss what else is happening. That mix of thrill, delight, terror, that rush of being brave, and the pride of accomplishment. The dance of going up one more rung on the ladder than was really comfortable, only to go down again and up again until enough courage had built up. This is play, and play is the work of childhood. In a time full of bursting schedules and endless enrichment and education opportunities, play oftentimes gets crowded out. But today, I'm going to make a case for play. And it's not another thing for you to add to your to-do list, or one more reason to think that you aren't doing enough for your kids. This is an invitation to take a fresh look at something as ancient as childhood itself. Play is universal. It's found throughout time, cultures, even across species. It is built into our very design. Play is where kids learn about how the world works, how their bodies work. They learn about social rules, managing shared resources, regulating big emotions, communication, language, imagination, relational awareness, empathy. Play builds self-control. It regulates the nervous system. It's an outlet for stress, and it lowers anxiety. It fosters flexible thinking and innovation. It's where most of your gross and fine motor development happens. It builds an awareness of who I am and how I move about in the world. There are many different types of play, but I want to hone in on one type today: free play. This is play that is completely child-led. In free play, kids are choosing what to play, how to play, when to change or stop. Kids will often lose track of time when they are deep in free play. It's often imaginative or exploratory. It can be repetitive. One of my daughters would play Kangaroo Family nearly every recess for a whole year. As time went on, the rules and roles of the family became more sophisticated. It can also mean moving your body in a big way. Kids need to jump, spin, crash, run, smash, build, destroy. They need to rub up against other kids in a way that creates conflict so they can figure out the nuance of being part of a group. They need to argue about rules and fairness, or compromise about how the game is played so the whole thing doesn't fall apart. Adults can be nearby, and they can step in to help if need, but this play is not organized or directed by a grown-up. Kids need free play, and they need lots of it. This is the type of play that often gets crowded out by busy schedules and structured activities. Research has shown that kids have nearly 12 fewer hours of unstructured playtime in a week than previous generations. That's 624 hours every year. We know that chronic sleep deprivation in kids leads to mood problems, poor learning, and emotional dysregulation. Research suggests that chronic play deprivation has similar long-term effects on emotional regulation, resilience, social skills, and even neurodevelopment. because play is literally how the brain wires itself for life. Now, here's the good news. You don't really have to do much when it comes to free play time. This is a time when your kids do the heavy lifting of finding something to do. You are not responsible for entertaining your child. You are not responsible for making every moment happy and magical. You don't have to play Barbies for 2 hours if you don't want to. Release that expectation if you have it. Here is what I am in charge of when it comes to free play time. Time, space, limits, and base. And these are true no matter the age of your child. I am in charge of carving out big chunks of time, 1 to 2 hours, where my kids don't have anything structured. We aren't on the move to the next thing, and where I'm very likely to hear the dreaded, "I'm bored." That is excellent. Boredom is a beautiful gift that you can give your kids. It's not a problem to solve. It's a doorway to imagination and creativity. When your kid hits you with the "I'm bored," our first response is often to offer ideas on what kids can do. And in my experience, every single one of those ideas is soundly rejected. Which is why I might say something like, "You aren't sure what to do next, are you?" I'm empathizing, but I am not fixing. If I fix it, kids learn that mom is responsible for entertaining me. What we want them to learn is I can create my own fun. I also want to teach my kids not to fear boredom. Their brain needs that downtime, and yours does too. As grown-ups, we often use devices in any down moments. And I know I feel like my days are constantly on the go. And by just waiting in the downtimes rather than reaching for my phone, I can find pockets of slow. It's actually uncomfortable at first, but it's really beneficial from a neurological standpoint. Now, kids, they often take somewhere between 15 and 45 minutes for them to really settle into play. This first part looks messy, aimless, and uncomfortable. They wander, they say, "I'm bored," they bug you. But then something clicks, and suddenly they're building worlds, creating games, completely immersed. That is deep play. And if we interrupt it every 20 minutes, they never get there. While play is innate and natural, it's also a muscle that needs to be exercised. If your child is more used to being directed or entertained, it'll take a little getting used to, but I promise you that it is worth pursuing. See if you can find where your kids are getting 1 to 2 hour blocks of playtime that is completely unstructured. Their play will look different in each stage. A toddler plays different than a preteen, but even preteens and teenagers need these big blocks of time where they are not being directed by a grown-up or being entertained by a device. I will add that as kids get older, the more they need free play time with other kids, which can be a bit of a challenge if, like me, you don't live in a neighborhood with a lot of kids around. That is where I like to find what I call a convenient play date. If we're already in the same place, taking a kid home with us for a while means less driving. So taking someone home from school with you or a Sunday after church, you're already in the same spot. So it's just pickup that you need to coordinate. Playing with other kids also means loads of time for conflict, which is a major need in childhood. What? You are telling me my kids need conflict? Yes, they do. If you want to hear more about helping kids navigate conflict, I share some tips in a video titled Managing Conflict on this channel. Time. I am in charge of protecting time for my kids to play. I am also in charge of space when it comes to play. Early on as a mom, I heard the term yes space, coined by Janet Lansbury. She's referring to a space that your kids have access to where the default is yes. You aren't worried about them hurting themselves or anything in the space because it's designed for them to free range in. Now, we have an open concept living, dining, kitchen area, and when my kids were really little, I had a giant playpen that I could put them in. They could do just about anything in there and not hurt themselves. And as they got older, our living room became our yes space. My kids were allowed to jump on our furniture. Kids need to jump, and I didn't have any other space at the time. So I resolved that my secondhand couch was going to be my kid furniture, and that once they got older, I'll get something nice. Now, they also know that not everyone allows jumping on their couches, and they need to ask when we visit someone else's house. Our living room became ground zero for all things creative. It held forts, a library, an airport, a dancing stage, a fashion show. We even once pushed everything back against the walls, rolled up the carpet, and made a roller skating rink for a couple weeks in the dead of winter. Now, some of you might be horrified at the thought of this, and I am not saying you need to let the kids take over your living room. You might have a basement or an attic or a playroom. I just didn't have that at the time, and I firmly believe in the value of play. And while it was sometimes annoying to not have my living room set the way I wanted, I can't say that I regret any of the forts. We have really fond memories of that roller rink. And once that space was opened up, it actually morphed into a hot chocolate cafe. My kids invited their aunts and uncles over, served them specialty hot chocolates. They created menus, took orders, made the hot chocolates one cup at a time. They served and bussed tables. We put on a cafe ambiance on the TV and used end tables and chairs to complete the setup. This is immersive play, and it was directed by the kids, but it was play that happened because they had space. Now we have space in our attic. It has an old mattress, a bunch of foam couches, swings, and the ability to basically do whatever you want, except for food. Food does not go in the attic. As my kids become teens, that space will morph, and we will probably say goodbye to the old mattress that they use for jumping, and I might relax the food rule, but it will still be a yes space for them when it comes to play. Here's the invitation. Where in your home can kids play for long chunks of time without having to be redirected by you? Where can they build big? Where can they crash, jump, and flip? Where can they get lost in their imaginations? While we're talking about space, I also want to talk about risk. As a society, we have done so much to keep our kids safe, everything we can to mitigate risk, and our intentions are entirely noble. But what we're seeing is that kids actually need risk. More importantly, they need opportunities to assess risk. They need to go too high, too fast, roughhouse, use tools, and explore with independence away from you. To that point, they might even get hurt a little bit, but a little hurt is okay. It teaches kids where the lines are. My job as a parent is to step in when there is a hazard. A hazard is something that is dangerous and would result in a lot hurt. It's something a child wouldn't see coming. A risk is a challenge a child can see and chooses whether or not to engage in. More and more things begin to fall into that risk category as your child gets older. You can help a child assess a risk by giving them information using "I notice" statements or questions like, "What's your plan?" This is also why I don't help my kids at the park. I don't help them with the monkey bars or the big climbing net. If I help them, they overestimate their abilities and end up putting themselves into a situation riskier than they can handle. Now, I'll be available for a spot standing behind you while you're climbing down, but I am giving you the gift of figuring things out for yourself. So I'm in charge of time, I'm in charge of space, and I am in charge of limits. Limits on where and what kind of play is taking place. I personally have 2 filters that I generally use with this. Is it hurting anyone or anything? And why not? Early on with my kids, I found that my immediate response to so many things was no. So I started asking myself, why not? Say there is a kid swinging a big stick. Many grown-ups would see that and say, no, put that stick down. The reasoning behind it might be that you can see another child about to be clobbered by that big stick, something that the child playing with it is not likely thinking about. But rather than an immediate no, which is my gut response, that gut response is faster than my logical response. I can ask myself, why not? The answer is, Johnny's about to be clobbered by it, will come to my mind, and then we can solve for that. I can tell my child, there are kids playing close to you. If you want to swing the stick, do it over there where there aren't any kids. I'm putting a limit on where my kids can do this particular play. As they get older, rather than just telling them, I might invite them into the problem. That looks like a lot of fun, swinging that big stick. What do you think might happen if you swing it close to those kids? What do you think you should do about that problem? My kids might need to move their bodies in a big way, but I can limit where that happens. If you want to jump, go upstairs and jump on the mattress. Oftentimes, we shut play down rather than putting limits on it in order to make it a win for everyone. If I can slow down that gut response and think of what my actual concerns are, oftentimes I can figure out a way to problem solve for those things or present my concerns to my kids and we negotiate to find the win. And finally, I am in charge of base. What does that mean? Base refers to secure attachment. This is all about connection. Remember when I told you that you don't have to play Barbies for hours on end? Oftentimes we think of connection as playing with our kids, but it doesn't have to be. You can play with your kids, and I think being silly and playful with them is a great way to connect. But being a part of that immersive play is not a requirement. You could do it for a short time or sometimes, but it is totally okay to say, I can't play with you right now. I once read Teacher Tom, who runs a play-based preschool, say to a child, I'm busy sitting here right now. This was so freeing for me. I can be busy sitting here, just observing. When you have a strong and healthy attachment with your child, you are the base from which they launch into the world to explore, and you are the safe place they return to or check in with as they need. Connection can look like reading a book together, snuggling before bed, eating dinner together, looking them in the eyes, touching them on the shoulder, and saying, hey, I really like you. It does not have to look like you playing monster trucks the whole afternoon. As a caveat to this, research shows that kids and dads receive peak oxytocin when they play together, particularly in physical play, while moms and kids get peak oxytocin in the nurturing moments. So dads, jump on in there and come find me when you need a Band-Aid. If you want to hear more about what it takes to be a secure base for your kids, I did another talk called The Big Six that you can search for on this channel. Free play is so valuable for our kids, and I would go as far as saying it's a need. If you want more resources on play, for littles, there's a book called It's Okay Not to Share and Other Renegade Rules by Heather Schumacher. It's great, I promise, for toddlers and pre-K kids. Now, her second book, It's Okay to Go Up the Slide and Other Renegade Rules, is great for elementary school kids and up. If you have preteens or teens, I recommend The Anxious Generation by Jonathan Haidt. This one delves deep into what the transition from a play-based childhood to a phone-based childhood is doing to our teens. The kids do the heavy lifting when it comes to the actual play. We're in charge of making time, of creating space, setting appropriate limits, and being a secure base. Now, I want to take just a minute to pivot the focus from the kids and put it on you. All of those things that I said about play for kids, they apply to you too. Grown-ups need play in their lives. Now, our play might look different, but curiosity, novelty, creativity, wonder, relational connection, we need these things. And in all of our grown-up responsibilities and productivity, they get squashed out. But God, He gave us time. He didn't just give it to us, He actually commanded it. Work for 6 days, but take a break from productivity, from doing, from being useful, even during the busiest seasons of your life. During harvest time, He commanded feasts, celebration, and Sabbath. God gives us space. He created an earth and universe full of such wonder we could spend a lifetime just exploring and playing in it and never even scratch the surface. And I know that God delights when we delight in His space. God gave us limits. When we operate within the limits that He has laid out, we are going to live our best, richest, fullest life. And God is our base. He is our primary attachment. It is through connection with Him that everything else flows. This is the anchor for our souls. This is what matters first and foremost. Start here. If you do nothing else after this, deeply examine your relationship with God. Do you know Him as your good Father? Not an earthly father who 100% has failed you in multiple ways. And then we take those things and we ascribe them to God. But God is our heavenly Father, perfect in all of His ways, just, merciful, will never leave or abandon you. He might let you walk through some really painful stuff, but He will be with you every step of the way, offering to spot you. I have 2 resources for you to dig into this further. Landscapes of the Soul by Sid and Jeff Holzclaw. This covers attachment from a spiritual perspective and what your attachment to your Heavenly Father is. And then Anatomy of the Soul by Dr. Kurt Thompson. This covers many ways that we engage with God: emotion, attachment, memory. Here's the thing. When my girls were launching themselves off those stairs into that giant pile of pillows, I could have shut it down. I could have said, nope, too messy, too dangerous, put it all away. And honestly, there are days when I want to say that because it's loud, it's chaotic, and I just folded those blankets. But now, after taking a second look, I see something different. I don't just see a mess on my living room floor. I see courage being built. I see bodies learning where they are in space. I see sisters negotiating turns and rules. I see them feeling fear and choosing courage. I see their nervous systems regulating and their brains wiring for resilience. I see childhood happening. And suddenly the pillows on the floor don't feel like a problem to fix. They feel like important work. Because this jumping and crashing and squealing, building, pretending, this is how kids grow. And not when everything is perfectly tidy, not when every minute is scheduled, but right there in the middle of the mess. So hear me, you don't have to do more. You don't have to entertain. You don't have to orchestrate childhood. Just make time, make space, set limits, and be their base. And then step back And let play do what play has always done. Let kids be kids. Because one day, those stairs will be quiet and the squishmallows will be gone, and you won't wish that you had protected the living room. You'll wish that you had protected the play.